Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today we're going to be making a project using a Mukumegane and a Lisa Pavelka peel and a translucent cane. So first we are going to start with the Mukumegane. Now I'm going to be using Kato today, but you can use any clay you want. I'm using Kato because I think that the colours are really bold and that's exactly what I want for this. So I'm going to be using Kato Black, white and turquoise. And now I'm going to be making a Mukumegane with these, so I'm going to just get out my statement rectangle, and this is just so that they're all now the same size as each other. You can just cut them to size if you want to. And these were all rolled out on my thickest setting. Oops, I didn't cut that one quite right. There we go. And I'll just cut out the others as well. Okay, now we'll just take this and we'll stack them up. And it doesn't really matter the order that you put them in, but I'm putting it white, blue and then black. There we go. And then just press it together so that they're nice and stuck. And the rectangles cut is just supposed to save me time when trimming them out. That's all it is. Then quickly use a blade and get rid of any excess clay that's on your work surface, because you don't want that getting on anything later. And then roll this through your pasta machine on the thickest setting, from short end to short end. Like that. Okay, and then any end that has slight overlap like that, just trim that off. So you're probably going to have to trim off a little bit on each end. Okay, then you want to cut this in half. And lay it over itself. And then just trim the end over here. Okay, and then I'm going to cut it in half again and stack. So there you can see what it looks like. And now I'm just pressing in all these ends because we've got slight craggles along the ends, which is fine, but I don't want those coming off when I put it through a pasta machine, so I'm just pressing it all together so it's nice and even. Okay, then I'm just going to pinch it down into a rectangle again so that it thins it out a bit, because it's a little bit thick to go through my pasta machine. So I use my roller quickly. Okay, and then I'm going to roll it through again from short end to short end. Okay, and that is all I'm going to do. I don't want to trim it, put it through a pasta machine anymore. And I'm just gently going to trim these sides. Like so. Okay, and then I'm going to stack. Just like that. I'll just trim off this little end here. Alright, and there we go. That's your Mukumegane sheet ready to use. And you can see the lines over there. Okay. Now you're going to need some form of cutters. You can use metal ones, you can use plastic ones, any ones that you have, but I'm going to be using some circle ones. And I also have that set. Okay. I'm just going to start with a fairly small one. And I'm going to press that into the stack, going all the way down, and then I'll bring it up again, and I'll do the same on this side. Okay, and the goal here is to be pushing those layers and distorting them. Okay, and then I'm going to take a slightly smaller one and I'm going to do it on this end and over here. And then I'm going to actually have that smaller one inside the larger one here. And so plastic ones do work better than the metal ones for this, simply because they will distort your clay quite a bit more than the metal will. The metal will simply cut straight through, whereas the cutters, although they cut cleanly, they will smear very slightly along the sides, which is actually what we want. Okay, and I'm just going to keep going down through the sizes of the cutter and going inside each of the circles until I've reached my smallest cutter. So I'm going to also be using my mini circles for this. Now you can use any cutter you want, so you could try this technique with square cutters, you could use diamond cutters, try triangles, any cutter you want. Just make sure that the cutter is graduated so that you can start with a large one and then put small ones into it. That's the only thing that you do need to look for. Okay, so I'll continue and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, and here's how it should look. Now I'm just going to take some more of my little mini cutters and I'm just going to cut along the sides here if I see any fairly large gaps. Now when using these, the clay can get stuck in them, so what I advise is working on a glass or ceramic working surface, and then before you cut you will gently press your clay down onto your work surface, the ceramic or glass work surface, and that should prevent the clay coming up into the cutter, because the clay will be stuck onto your work surface. So if you're working with mini cutters, I advise working on a ceramic or glass surface and gently patting your clay onto the surface before cutting. Okay, so there's what it looks like. Now I'm just going to take my blade and press in from each end to get these pieces to stick together nicely. Because we don't want them falling out or anything like that. And then I'm going to roll from the top as well. There we go. Okay, then I will pick it up. And you can see that it also went through to the back. And I'm just going to be pressing on these sides, getting all these pieces to stick in to themselves before I try and shave the mukumegane, because if you try and take a piece of the mukumegane now, you'll find that it comes out in pieces and just is a pain to put back together. So just make sure before you do anything that all those pieces are stuck back together. Okay, and I do want the slab a little bit smaller because then it makes slicing easier. So in a way I'm actually reducing this, but it's not a great way to reduce if you're doing a cane or anything like that, but it's really nice for mukumegane because it distorts the piece and everything, and it just makes it look really interesting because it makes those layers a little bit less straight. Okay, and I'll just have one more press on each side. There we are. And then I'm going to place this onto my tile and I'm going to press nice and hard, and this will get the clay to stick to the tile, which is exactly what I want. It will make shaving off the mukumegane a lot easier. There we go. Okay, now you want a nice sharp blade. You don't want a dull one, and if possible use a thin blade, because I find that they're just sharper than the thicker one. So if it's a flexible blade that you can do that with very easily, that's a good blade. This one, it kind of bends, but I can't bend it that much. So go and use this sort of blade. Okay, and I'm just going to shave this top part off to see how it looks. Just to decide which way round I want to be shaving my mukume gane, because I might want to be shaving it from the black side, because if you ever look here, this is basically a mirror of this, but it looks completely different. Hopefully you can see that. So I just like to shave a little bit first to see how it looks, and then decide which way I want to be shaving. And I do want to be shaving this way around. Okay, but I do want it a little bit smaller. So I'll just pick it up and start squishing in a little bit more to make it a little bit smaller. There we go. Okay, now I'm just going to press that down again. And use my tissue blade. Oh, excuse me, my roller to flatten it out. Right, and then I'll grab my blade, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be holding it, and I'm going to gently be pulling on either end so that it's not as flexible. I'm just holding it so that it's very easy to bend. I'm just gently pulling slightly on each end. And I'm going to bring that through the mukume gane. And it might take a little bit of practice at first to get it to cut a nice clean slice. And now I'm gently placing my thumb here to get it to cut the last part cleanly, but I'm not pressing hard, so don't worry about cutting yourself. Okay, and that is what it looks like. Okay, and then I just press the sides again and flatten it out, and I will slice again. There you go, and that's what that side looks like, and that's what that side looks like. And I'll just continue slicing until I have gone through my entire block of mukume gane. Okay, and here is what they look like. So I'm quite happy with how they've turned out. And so now I'm going to just pop these to the side, and we will use them later on. And don't worry when they are uneven, because unless you're really good at doing this, your slices will be slightly uneven and will have some highs and lows. Don't worry about that, we will sort that out later on. So just pop these to the side and out of the way, and go and choose a texture stamp. I'm going to be using my Frozen Fractals texture stamp, but any texture stamp will work for this. For example, Lisa Pavelka's Love Letter stamp, that will work really well. So go choose any texture stamp you want, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, and so once you've chosen your stamp, grab a sheet of black that's been rolled out on your thickest setting, and you will also need some metal leaf. You can use any colour you want, but it does need to contrast against the black, so I'm going to be using silver. Let me just show you what it looks like quickly. You can see I've almost used up all my metal leaf, but this is what it looks like. And I sell this on my Etsy shop if you want to go and check that out. And now metal leaf can be a little tricky, but there you go. Once you get hold of it, pop the book, your stash away, and grab this leaf. And you need to have all your windows closed. No fans, no nothing, no breeze. It causes problems with the metal leaf. And then gently smooth that down onto your clay. And careful, it will crack. So just do this gently, and then go around the edges and gently press down on them. And this is going to help remove the excess metal leaf. And keep this metal leaf. You can use it in all sorts of other projects. So don't go and throw this away or anything. There you go, just go around with a craft knife and you should be able to trim this away very easily. And then go put that back where your last piece was and put the paper back over it. Okay, now you're ready to get started. So I'm going to quickly pick this up. I'm just going to tap around the edges to just smooth out any pieces that are still there. And then I'll grab my stamp and place it metal leaf side down into the stamp. And then what you want to do is you want to gently dust the top of your stamp with either water or cornstarch. So I'm going to dust the top of my clay quickly with just a little bit of cornstarch, and this will prevent my fingers from sticking to it while I am pressing from one end to the other. And I've dusted my stamp with a little bit of cornstarch, but the metal leaf acts as a release as well. But just for a safe measure, I like to just dust my stamp with some cornstarch. And you can use water, but I have found that some brands of polymer clay don't react very well to water, so I generally use cornstarch. Now, just a little bit, because some of the brands, when in contact with water, will get really sticky and almost melt. So, after a few times of that happening, I now use cornstarch. Okay, and now gently lift your stamp, and now it's not going to look like much at the moment. You need to trim away these edges, and you can keep these now. Don't go and mix them up or anything, you can use them. There we go. Now you need to go and get some tape. Okay, and I'm going to be using this really nice white tape. And just lay that down onto your clay and very gently burnish your clay. Try and get it on all of the raised texture parts. Don't press too hard because you don't want to be eliminating your texture. You just want to be getting those high parts and get it stuck onto that metal leaf. And then lift. And there you can see the pattern there, it's quite nice. Okay, and then I'll do the same here. Okay, and you might need to go over just a few times to make sure that you really got all of that metal leaf off of the raised parts. So I'll probably go over twice. There we go. And when taking off your tape, don't be too rough, because sometimes you can actually take off some of the clay depending on how stuck it was. So when you take it off, don't be going and ripping it. Gently peel it off. Okay, and there we go. That is what our piece looks like. Now I'm going to be using resin, so I'm not going to flatten this out or anything. I'm going to keep it textured like this. I think it looks really nice. And I want to keep the texture on here so that I can sand it later on, and that will remove even more of the metal leaf that's just kind of a little bit on the raised areas. So I'm going to keep it as a texture at the moment. I'm not going to flatten it out, and that's quite important. And so if I bring over a piece of the Kumagana, you can see it, those two are going to go really nicely together. So last part now is to go and get a piece of translucent, and I'm using translucent white because it has a white tint when baked rather than a slightly orange tint when baked. And you're also going to need some white, obviously, and I'm using Primo translucent just because that translucent's better, but we're going to be using so little of it in the actual project that it's not a problem to mix the brands. I've had no problem with it. So you'll want to just take your white, and I'm rolling it into a sausage. Okay, and you want it about the length of your translucent. And let me just trim this end here so it's nice and clean. And then I'm just going to be putting these across the translucent like this. And then once you're done with that, go and take a piece of translucent and put it in the middle too. So it goes white, translucent, white, translucent, white, translucent on a strip of translucent. And I'll just do that across the entire length of my translucent strip. Okay, so I've laid them out all in a row, as you can see. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just roll it up like a jelly roll. And now the important thing is to have a translucent log on the end over here that you're rolling. And then just gently roll. And the start can be a little bit tricky, but once you get going, it's not that difficult at all. There we go. And then just make sure that you bend over the translucent so that that last little piece is captured in the translucent. Okay, and now just gently going to squish the top, and I'm also going to start squishing the sides as I start to reduce this. And I'll probably reduce this down to about a centimetre to half a centimetre. Depends, we'll see. So I'll just continue reducing like you would any round cane. And then when we're done with that, we can start assembling our piece. And now just another thing, while I'm reducing this, I've taken the leftover clay and I've mixed it from the mukume garner, and I've mixed it into a solid colour. You're going to need that, so keep that as well. So you can do that step as well. Okay, so I'm just going to reduce this and then we can assemble. Okay, and so I've reduced it down, and you can see you get quite a bit of cane out of it. And here is what the cane itself looks like. And here are the cane ends. So I'll just pop this to the side, and we're going to now start assembling our bead. And what you'll need is that leftover clay that I pointed out earlier, and you'll want that about half the thickness of your Lisa Bavelka sheet. And so this was on my thickest setting, which is probably around 4 millimeters thick, and this was rolled out on my middle setting, which is about 2 millimeters thick. Okay, and so I'm then going to take one of my mukume garne slices, and I'm just going to choose the one that's my favourite. I think this one probably is. And I'm just going to place it. Let's just choose which side do we like the best. Like this side the best. Okay, and I'm just going to place that facing down, and then I might take my blade and just trim off an end if it's really thick compared to the rest, just to even it out a little bit. There we go. Okay, and now I'm going to roll this through my thickest setting. There we go, and that will equal the mukume garne slice out and make it as thick as my Lisa Bavelka sheet piece. And then I'm just going to trim up the edges here. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to be using a convex spearhead. So I might need another piece of mukume gane to go with this. So let me just make another sheet quickly. There we go. And then I want to join these two pieces together. So let me just find where the best spot would be. I think that's a pretty good spot. And then I'll just pop them together, and now you are going to have the seam over here. So you'll need a piece of plain printing paper to go over the top of this. Okay. And then just burnish. And I use my fingers and my roller to get this done. And you don't want to be going and rolling it through the pasta machine because that's not going to smooth out the seam. That's just going to lengthen the pieces. So just give it a real good burnish. And that should smooth out the seams. And the extra bonus is it will make this completely smooth too, which is nice. Okay, and if I bring over the cutter, it should fit quite happily over there. Okay, so now we're ready to assemble. So I'm just going to pick this up quickly. I'm just going to double feel to make sure that I can't feel the seam anymore, because when you sand a bit later on, seams will become visible. And then what you want to do is you want to take your cutter and you want to cut out one from the mukume gane. And now I'm using the second smallest maxi spearhead, in case you're wondering, cutter. Okay, and you'll cut from your Lisa Pavelka peel as well. Okay, now go take the Lisa Pavelka peel, and the cornstarch from the back is actually going to help quite a bit now, because I want to stack these two very gently. I don't want to be sticking them together, I just want to stack them so that I can take my blade, which is flexible, and just gently curve it. I'm actually going to pick this up and bring it into a better position so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to curve it and cut. And then I want to be able to take these pieces apart. There you go. Okay, and then just quickly brush away any clay that might be hanging around. And put the two together. Now it might take a little bit of fiddling to get it to fit, but it should fit perfectly. And you can do the same on the other side too. There we go. And then just check with your cutter to make sure that it's still symmetrical. So my head needs to be over here so I can check that. Okay, and so I'll just press down on it just to make sure there is all fine. So you can see that this one there was a little bit of stretching, which is fine. That's why we just go and check it. Then I'll just remove that quickly. I'm just using the blade because I can curve it into the right position. Okay. There we go. And so now I'm just going to take one of these at a time, and I think I'm going to work with that one. And so I'm going to just grab this and gently put it to the side. And I'm going to bring this over our translucent polka dot cane, and I think I like the size, so this is about 1 centimetre in diameter. Now just cut off the end to make it nice and clean, and then I'll just start slicing nice thin pieces. And I'm using my flexible tissue blade because, again, I find that this is my sharpest blade. And now you can see that I'm rolling the cane out of the way so that I'm keeping it round while I slice, and I'm also not having all the slices bunched together. There we go. But it keeps it in a nice neat line. And then I'll just place these down next to each other. Along the seam between these two veneers. And you can use any translucent cane for this if you want, but I think the polka dot one looks really nice. There we are. Okay, and then I'll bring over the other one. And I will do the exact same thing. And now I've made these, this pendant one size too big, because there is going to be a bit of distortion and it's not going to stay the same size. So I've made it one size larger than I actually want it to end up being, so that I can use my smallest spearhead cutter, my smallest maxi spearhead cutter, to trim it to the right size once we have smoothed everything out. And that's something that I do quite often, because it just helps keep your piece looking nice, rather than having to stress about reshaping and everything if you do get distortion. Okay, there we are, and I'll just get those out the way. And now what I'm going to do is I'm very gently going to use a piece of plain printing paper to just smooth along that line where the translucent dots are. And I'm just going to use my finger because I don't want to smooth out this texture over here. But I do want to smooth these out just a little bit. And again, this is going to cause a bit of distortion in our piece. So that is why I've made it one size larger than I actually want it to be. There. And I'll just check, see if I'm happy with it. I'd like to do it just a little bit more, especially on the mukume garne side. And what this is also going to be doing is, once you've smoothed them out, take your paper and just gently smooth the entire thing. This is going to smooth out fingerprints and everything, so it's nice and clean and ready to go in the oven. So I'm even going to be smoothing the textured section just a little bit to get rid of any fingerprints that might have gotten caught on it. Okay, so now I will bring over my smallest maxi cutter, and again you can use any cutter that you want, and you can see that it's going to fit quite nicely into there. But I want to work on a piece of paper now. So I'm going to grab these, pop them onto a piece of plain printing paper and clean up the tile. And we want to prepare the backing quickly, because if we can cut it in one go, that is always best. So get a piece of black Kato. Okay, and I've run this through on my middle setting, so that is about 2 millimeters thick. And I'm just going to use my frozen fractal stamp again and quickly press this clay in. And I'm not going to be pressing it all the way into the stamp, because I don't want it to be that, I don't want the texture to be that raised on the back. I just want a light texture that is similar to what we have on the front. And I'm gently gonna get this out. We might have a few slight tears. That's fine, that's just because we've made this so thin. And you can see that the texture really is very, it's not very deep, which is fine. That's what we want. I'll just move that out the way. Get that out the way. Okay, and I'm just going to lift this up quickly. And I'll bring over our spearheads, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip our bead actually, and I'm going to pop this on the back and gently smooth. Okay, and I'll do the same for this one too. Okay, now I'll just grab my tiny, or not tiny, my spearhead cutter, and I think I'm actually gonna cut it, let's see, I think I'm gonna cut it this way around. Actually no, because then I won't be able to see what I'm doing. Never mind. There we are. You come that away cleanly, but because we're working on a piece of paper, it will stick in the cutter. Just gently bring it out. And then do the same for this one. And I'm working on a piece of paper because I don't want to get shiny spots on the back. So we're going to have a few edges that need to be a little bit smoothed off, and we're going to have it just sit in the cutter a little bit. Okay. Now what I want to do is I just want to trim these sides very slightly. Just get off a tiny little bit. And if you were just working on a ceramic tile, whoops, you wouldn't actually have those little bits. It's just because we're working on the paper. There's just a tiny little bit that needs to be taken off. And to be honest, you could leave it until later once it's baked and do it with the sanding. But why not just trim it off now? It'd be much easier. Then just go around with your finger and just make sure that everything's nice and smooth. Make sure there's no gaps or anything like that. And then pop that to the side. And I'll do the same with this one. Okay, so now that our beads are all done, we now want to quickly make a bale. So I've taken a piece of black polymer clay, rolled out on my thickest setting, and I've textured it quickly with my frozen fractals texture. And I'm just going to take my second smallest long diamond cutter, and I'm going to cut out a piece. And now before I use it, I want to make sure that it's not very clean around the edges. Because this is going to be our bale. There we go. And then I'll just pick this up quickly, and I'll bring over a piece of graph paper and one of our beads. And you want to position your bead so that you can see where the middle is up top here. Okay, all symmetrical, excellent. And then just take this and very gently work it over so that it bends. And you just want to do that gently because your clay can split if you're not gentle enough with it. Okay, and then I'm just going to rotate this, pick this up, slide that under, place that on top. And then if I bring this around here, and it should be symmetrical, so I'm just gonna work it over into the right position so that it is symmetrical, and that's why I like working on this graph paper. Okay, that should be equal now. Okay, and so that's our one. And just gently take it and pinch the top here, like so. Okay, and then I'll put that to the side. And that is, oops, one of our pendants. Now I'm going to take this other one and I want to put a round veil at the top because then it won't interfere with our resin. Okay, and so I've just got a strip, and again this is done with the same texture. And I've just got a paintbrush which has the right size for my bale. There, and I'll just gently pinch this end so that it's nice and squished together. There we go. Okay, and I will remove this very gently. Bring over the graph paper again. And our other pendant. And I will move that into position. Yeah. Grab this, make sure that the seam is facing onto the pendant. You don't want the seam to be facing up or down. It needs to be the part that's sitting against the pendant. And very gently, using some sort of tool, like I'm using this skewer, press the bale onto your pendant from the first side and then from the back side as well. And I sometimes like to take a tool and gently smudge the clay up so that it doesn't form such a seam. Okay, there we go. And so those are our two pendants. And what I want to do with this is I don't want it to be like this right at this moment. I've marked out where it needs to go on the pendant and on the back. And I've got this ready. So I'm just going to keep this. I'm actually not going to join it to the pendant because it is going to interfere with the resin. So what I'm going to do instead is, although it looks nice like it was, I do want resin, and that's going to cover up all the imperfections that we have because we don't want to smooth out the texture. What I'm going to do is I'm just gently going to tap that down so it's stuck together, and then I will keep this as a bale, but what I'll do is once this has had its resin on it, I will connect it by a jump ring, and I think that will work just as well, but it means it will be able to have resin on this, which is quite important to the design. So I'll just gently smooth out these edges. And that piece, and that piece will all go in the oven at Kato's recommended temperature for a full hour and you want to put a piece of plain printing paper over the top, and you want them to be sitting on a plain piece of printing paper as well while they're in the oven to prevent scorching and any problems. And just go with your finger and gently smooth to make sure that there aren't any fingerprints. And then I'll go pop this in the oven. Okay, so these are out of the oven, and so I've sanded the one just so you can see it has a slight sheen to it, and the back hopefully you can see there's a very slight sheen to it as well, versus this one that has not been sanded. So what I want to do now, I've also sanded this one and that. These two have been sanded, this one I now want to sand. So I'm going to bring over some polishing papers, and now any sandpaper will work. Just make sure that you're using one that starts from 400 and goes all the way up to at least 8,000. If you want to use polishing papers, Fire Mountain Gems stocks them, and I also stock them on my Etsy shop, Jessama design. So there'll be a link in the description below. And I really like the papers because they don't take off as much material, they just polish it up for you. And then don't forget to do the sides as well, and do the front. And I'll go from my 400 all the way up to my 8,000. And then when that's done, we can pop some resin on. Now, when you do the front, don't worry about sanding off that foil, because we still have that texture there. It will be nice and safe in the crevices. Anything that can be sanded off is what we want to be sanded off at the moment. And that's why I said that we should not flatten the texture, because it means that I can sand it and give it a much cleaner finish. So I'll continue sanding, and then when we're done we can pop some resin on. Okay, so I've sanded this one up, and you can see it's much shinier now and much cleaner. So now we are ready to start resining, and I'm going to be using Lisa Pavelka's Magic Gloss. You can use ice resin, and you can also use Ultra Dome. That will work as well. Personally, I think the ice resin is the best, but I have been wanting to use Lisa Pavelka's Magic Gloss a little bit more in the videos because a few of you have been having trouble. So if I were to recommend these in order of the best to least best, it would be ice resin, Lisa Pavelka's Magic Gloss, and then Ultra Dome, because Ultra Dome tends to have a little bit of a concave in the middle of the bead, so definitely, and it's also a little bit hard to get hold of, so that's why I ranked it just a little bit lower. Okay, and I'm going to be using this resin mat because it's the only one that fits inside my machine, and I'm just going to do these one at a time on the mat at least. Now just open up the bottle, and I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to squeeze. And then while I'm squeezing, I'm just going to move it around a little bit. The advantage of Lisa Pavelka's Magic Gloss over ice resin is that you don't have to mix up two parts, but I have no problem with that, especially if you use an ice resin plunger. So if you are a little bit scared of mixing up two-part resins, I'd recommend getting the ice resin plunger, or you can try a one-part resin that needs a UV lamp. And now I'm being very careful to not overdo it, but the trick with this resin is that it does pull away from the edges quite a bit, so you need to put on quite a bit of resin. So it's a bit of a balancing act between putting too much resin on and having it spill over the edges, and putting on too little and having it pull away from the edges. And that is the main problem with this resin. And it's not too difficult to work with. So what I would recommend doing is put what you would think is a sufficient amount of resin on your bead, and then let it sit for all you need is less than a minute and you should be able to see if it's pulling away from the edges. So I can see that it's pulling away a bit over there. If I put my skewer there, you can see it's not picking up anything. And it's pulling away a little bit over here. You can see resin's right there, but it's not over here. And it's just a little bit there. So I need to add just a little bit more resin in those areas. Don't try and drag the resin back because it's just going to pull away again. You need to add more. Okay, then once you've added, let it sit for just a little while. I mean, I can see it pulling away even while I'm just sitting here. I don't even need to wait for it all that much. I can see it's just pulling away a little bit. So I'm just going to add a little bit more, and a little bit more there, tad more there. And that should be enough. I'm just going to let it sit for a minute or two. I don't see it pulling away. Now the advantage of the magic gloss over the ice resin is that it holds its surface tension much better, and so you have it's less likely to flow over the edges. So that's definitely a good thing. Now I'm just going to let it sit there a little bit longer and I'm going to see if it pulls away. Okay, and so I've done both of these, and now I'm going to go pop them into the UV lamp, and I'm probably going to leave them in there for at least 15 minutes, because the thing with the UV resin that I found is that it cures from the outside in. So although the outside might look like it's cured and even feel like it's cured, if you press on it, it can leave a lump. So just be safe and leave it in there for at least 15 minutes. I sometimes will even leave it in there for about 25. So I'll leave it in my UV lamp, and then when it's cured, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I've let them cure, and so you can see they're nice and shiny. And so now what we want to do is we want to attach these two together. So first what I'm going to do, is let me just move these out the way, is I'm going to use my pen drill to just drill into here. Now if you want a pen drill, I do stock them on my Etsy shop. I went through all the ones I could find and I checked out the one that I liked the best. So if you're looking for one, definitely go check that out, because a few of you have been asking about that. Okay, and so I'm not pressing very hard, I'm doing this very gently. Because if you press too hard, you might cause these two pieces to split or something worse. So just go gently with this. And so now that I've got a little hole, I'm actually going to drill through this way so that I can see what I'm doing. There we go. And I've drilled almost halfway. Now I'm going to start on this side and drill through as well. The texture is making it a little tricky because the drill bit wants to slide until it gets into a crevice. So that is a little bit tricky. But you just want to do it slowly. And these two should meet up quite happily. Okay, and I'll just keep drilling forward through each of these holes until they meet up in the middle. Okay, and there we are. And because we're using Kato, it also takes a little bit longer to drill through, simply because the clay is quite a bit harder than Prima, which is what I usually drill through. But there we are, gave a nice clean hole, as you can see. So I'll pop that over to the side, and now it is our spearhead's turn. And I'm going to use some graph paper quickly, because that's just going to help me figure out where I need to drill accurately. Because when we're doing putting these two pieces together, we want it to link up exactly. So I'll just position this on the graph paper. Okay, and then at that center line, is where I'll place my drill. Oops. And then I just need to drill down. And this can take a little while. There we go. And once I've made a suitable mark, I'm going to move this graph mat out the way, and I'm just going to start drilling. Okay, and now because it took a little bit of fussing, I didn't show this on camera because it took a little while to get it into the right spot and stuff. But basically I've just taken a jump ring and I've slipped it through the hole in the bead and then popped it through the hole in the bale and then brought the join together and popped it in the hole so it's hidden. And so there we are. You now have a pendant with a bale, as you can see. So these are the two pendants and you can choose which one you like the best. But for now we're going to turn them into jewellery. So I've got a ready-made rubber cord for this one. And the other one we're going to put on sari ribbon. So ready-made rubber cord's really nice and easy and quite effective. And the sari ribbon, I'm going to be using this really nice kind of silvery one. I'm just going to string this on now. There, and I quite like the look of that. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that out of the way for the meantime. And I'm going to bring over one of these crimps that I get from firemountaingems.com. And I'm just going to twist the sari ribbon up at the end here. And I will fit it into this little crimp. There we are. And then squeeze. Give a gentle tug to see if it's secure. It is. Okay. Then you will need a jump ring. And I'm just going to take out two because we're going to need one on each end. And you will also need your clasp. So open up your jump ring, pop your clasp on, pop that through the loop, and that's one end of your necklace done. Now I will repeat on this end. And there we go. And that is your necklace all done and finished. And so that looks quite nice. It's a bit of a different style from the other one. So whichever one you like, definitely let me know. Personally, I like this one the best, just because I think it looks simple and elegant. But you might be of a different opinion, so let me know what you think, which one you like the best. And I do hope this tutorial was helpful to you. If it was, please do let me know. And do check the links in the description below for a translation of this tutorial on my website, where you can take a written version and translate it into your own language. There are also links to the products that I have listed in the video, and there's also a link to my Patreon where you can support the videos that I put onto YouTube, because it does take quite a bit of work to put them up here. So please do check that out, and please do comment in the comment section below. I always love reading your comments, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.